The city was alive that evening, buzzing with the restless rhythm of people finishing their day. Streetlights flickered on one by one, painting the sidewalks in a pale glow. Cars honked impatiently, their headlights cutting through the dusky air, while shopkeepers shouted last-minute offers to lure in late customers. It was the usual chaos of a busy street, but within that noise was a single sound that carried more weight than anything else happening around it. A fragile, trembling voice. "Excuse me, miss, will you be my mommy?" The words were small, barely louder than a whisper, but they sliced through the air with an intensity that no one else seemed to hear. Except for Claire. Claire had been walking briskly, her heels clicking against the pavement as she tried to beat the chill of the evening. She was a woman who rarely stopped for strangers. Life had taught her to keep moving, to mind her own business. But this time, her entire body froze as though those words had chained her to the ground. Slowly, she turned her head, her eyes searching the crowd until they landed on the source of the voice, and then she saw her. A little girl, no older than 6, stood just a few steps away. Her small body looked swallowed by an oversized sweater. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, her hands clutching the edge of her sleeve nervously. But it was her eyes that caught Claire's breath in her throat. Big, brown eyes, glistening with tears, staring up at her with a mixture of hope and desperation. For a moment, Claire couldn't speak. Her brain struggled to process what had just happened. A stranger's child, asking her, a complete unknown, to be her mother. It didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense. Claire knelt down slowly so she was at eye level with the girl. "Sweetheart," she said softly, trying to keep her voice steady, "what did you just say?" The little girl's lips quivered as she repeated the words, this time even quieter, almost afraid of being scolded. "Will you be my mommy?" Something inside Claire cracked open. She wasn't sure if it was her heart or her soul, but it hurt in the most unfamiliar, unexplainable way. She wanted to brush it off, to assume the child was just confused or playing pretend. But there was nothing playful in that little girl's expression. It was raw. Real. Claire swallowed hard, searching for the right response. "Where's your mommy, honey? Is she nearby?" The little girl shook her head slowly, strands of her dark hair falling across her face. I don't have one." The words hit Claire like a knife. The child shifted uncomfortably, clutching her sweater tighter as though she was afraid to say more. "But she did. I live with my grandma. She says I shouldn't ask about my real mommy anymore. She says, some things are better left alone." But, the girl's small voice broke, and a tear slid down her cheek. "I just want someone to call mommy." Claire felt her chest tighten. She could hear the cars, the chatter, the noise of the city around them, but it all faded into a blur. All she could focus on was this child, so young, so innocent, yet already carrying the heavy ache of abandonment. She forced herself to smile gently. "But why did you ask me? There are so many people walking by. Why me?" The little girl's answer was simple, yet it dug deeper than anything Claire could have imagined. "Because you look kind," the child said. She sniffled, wiping her tears with the back of her tiny hand. "And when I saw you, something inside me said, maybe you could be my mom." Claire's vision blurred with tears she didn't expect. She blinked rapidly, trying to keep them from falling, but it was no use. She was overwhelmed by emotions she didn't fully understand. Why did this stranger's words pierce her so deeply? Why did she feel as if this child's pain was connected to her own in a way she couldn't explain? Her mind raced, but her heart whispered something entirely different, something frightening. It whispered that this little girl wasn't just any child. Claire tried to steady her breathing, glancing around the street. People were still moving past, oblivious to the tiny miracle happening right here. To them, it was just another evening. But to Claire, it felt like the beginning of something life-changing. She extended her hand slowly. "Come here, sweetheart," she whispered. The girl hesitated at first, but then she stepped forward, her small hand slipping into Claire's. It was warm, trusting, innocent, and yet, in that simple touch, Claire felt a spark. A strange, undeniable connection. She didn't know why she felt it. She didn't know what it meant. But one thing was certain, she couldn't just walk away. The little girl looked up at her with tear-stained cheeks and whispered again, almost pleading this time, "Will you be my mommy?" Claire's lips trembled as she pulled the girl into her arms. She didn't answer right away, she couldn't. Her heart was pounding too hard, her mind spinning with questions. But as she held the child close, feeling the tiny heartbeat against her chest, one thought refused to leave her mind. Why does this feel like I've known her all my life? And just like that, Claire's life began to shift. She didn't know what this encounter meant, or where it would lead, but she knew one thing: this was no ordinary meeting. This was fate knocking at her door in the most unexpected way. Claire's knees ached slightly as she remained crouched in front of the little girl, but she didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the child's trembling lips, her small shoulders hunched like she carried the weight of the world, weight far too heavy for someone her age. "Sweetheart," Claire began softly, her voice gentle, cautious, as though afraid that one wrong word might shatter the fragile little soul in front of her. "Where's your mommy?" The little girl dropped her gaze, staring at her worn shoes. Her fingers twisted the hem of her sweater nervously. Finally, she whispered, "I don't have one." Claire felt her heart squeeze, her breath catching for a moment. "You don't have one," she repeated, trying to understand. The girl shook her head quickly, her dark hair falling forward to hide her face. "Grandma says I shouldn't ask anymore about my real mom." Her voice cracked at the end, and a tear slipped down her cheek. She tried to brush it away quickly, as if embarrassed for showing so much sadness to a stranger, but Claire caught that tear with her eyes, and it pierced her deeper than any blade could. The little girl continued, her voice trembling. "I see other kids, they hold their mommy's hands. They get picked up from school. Their moms hug them, kiss them goodnight. I don't have that." Claire felt her own throat tighten. She wanted to say something, to offer comfort, but the words stuck. The girl sniffled, raising her gaze to meet Claire's again. Her eyes were shimmering, filled with both hope and heartbreak. "Grandma loves me. She cooks for me and takes care of me. But she's old. She gets tired. She says I should stop asking for a mommy. But," she hesitated, her lips trembling. "But I just want someone to call mommy." Those words fell into Claire's heart like heavy stones. She couldn't look away, couldn't pretend she hadn't heard them. The desperation, the longing, it was too real. For a long moment, the sounds of the city blurred into silence. Claire could hear only the faint trembling of the child's voice echoing in her ears. She managed to whisper, "But why me, sweetheart? Why did you ask me? There are so many people here." The girl's answer was soft, almost innocent, yet so powerful it left Claire speechless. "Because you look kind," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I saw you, I don't know, it felt like maybe you could be my mom." Claire's breath caught. Her eyes widened slightly as her heart stumbled in her chest. She had never been told something like this before, so direct, so pure, so heartbreakingly honest. The girl's tiny hands fidgeted nervously, as though she regretted saying too much. I shouldn't ask, I know. Grandma says people will think I'm silly. But sometimes, when I see ladies walking by, I wonder, could she be my mommy? Or maybe her? But then I saw you." Her voice trailed off, and she smiled shyly, though her eyes glistened with tears. "And I just felt different. Like I was supposed to ask you." Claire pressed her lips together to keep from crying. Her chest ached in a way she hadn't felt in years, an ache she couldn't explain. She reached out slowly, brushing a strand of hair away from the little girl's face. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The child blinked, her tears still hanging on her lashes. "Lily." "Lily," Claire repeated, her voice trembling slightly. The name felt strangely familiar on her tongue, as if it had lived in her heart long before this moment. Lily, she said again, you're such a brave little girl. Do you know that? Lily shook her head quickly. I don't feel brave. Claire gave a soft, sad smile. But you are. It takes so much courage to ask for something you really want. And you asked for the most special thing in the world. Lily tilted her head, curiosity flickering through her sadness. It is special, isn't it? To have a mommy? Claire's throat tightened again. She nodded, blinking back tears. Yes, sweetheart. It's very special. The little girl sighed, her small shoulders slumping. Sometimes I dream about it. I dream that a mommy tucks me in and kisses my forehead. That she makes me pancakes in the morning, or that she holds my hand when I'm scared. But then I wake up, and it's just Grandma again. She's nice, but she's not mommy. Claire couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They slipped silently down her cheeks. She tried to wipe them away quickly, not wanting to scare the girl, but Lily noticed. Why are you crying? Lily asked softly, her big eyes widening. Claire shook her head, forcing a trembling smile. Because you're so precious. And because I wish no child had to feel the way you do. Lily studied her for a moment, then reached up with her tiny hand and brushed a tear from Claire's cheek. Don't cry, she whispered. You look too nice to cry. That simple gesture nearly broke Claire completely. How could such a small child, hurting so deeply herself, still have the kindness to comfort someone else? Claire took a shaky breath, trying to gather herself. Lily, she said softly, you're not silly for wanting a mommy. You deserve love. Every child does. Lily's face brightened slightly, as though those words gave her a small flicker of hope. Do you think maybe one day I'll have a mommy? Claire didn't know how to answer. Her heart screamed yes, but her mind swirled with confusion. Why did this child's presence feel so strangely familiar? Why did she feel as if she already belonged in her life? Claire gently squeezed Lily's hand. Sometimes, sweetheart, the people we're meant to have in our lives, they find us. Even when we least expect it. Lily's lips curved into the faintest smile. Like how I found you. Claire's eyes blurred again, and she nodded. Yes, exactly like that. The two of them stayed there for a moment, just a woman and a little girl on a crowded street, but somehow, it felt as though the world had gone quiet around them. For Claire, this was no ordinary encounter. Something inside her had shifted. This wasn't just a random child's wish. No, this felt like the beginning of something much greater, something written long before this moment, waiting for fate to unfold. And though she didn't know it yet, Lily's innocent wish had just opened the door to a truth that would change both of their lives forever. Claire couldn't bring herself to leave Lily standing alone after hearing her story. Something inside her urged her to stay close, to protect her. So, with the child's tiny hand nestled in hers, she asked softly, "Where's your home, sweetheart? Can you show me?" Lily's eyes lit up with a strange kind of trust. "It's not far," she said, pointing down the street. Her little shoes tapped quickly on the pavement as she guided Claire toward a quieter corner of the city, away from the crowded shops and the buzz of traffic. Claire followed closely, her mind spinning. She kept glancing at the girl's delicate face, wondering how a stranger could already feel so familiar. It made no sense. Yet, with every step they took together, her heart felt heavier, like she was walking into something far deeper than she could yet understand. After a few turns, Lily stopped in front of a small, weathered house tucked between taller buildings. Its paint was chipped, the wooden fence sagging to one side. The windows glowed faintly from the inside, warm light spilling out onto the porch. It wasn't much, but it carried the humble charm of a home built on love, even if love had been hard to hold onto. "This is where I live," Lily said, pointing proudly at Claire nodded gently, forcing a smile. It looks cozy. Before she could say more, the door creaked open. An elderly woman, her gray hair tied back in a bun, stepped onto the porch. Her face was lined with age and worry, but her eyes, the moment they landed on Claire, froze in shock. "Grandma!" Lily squealed happily, running to her. She hugged the old woman's waist tightly. "This lady helped me. She's so nice. I asked her if she could be my mommy." The grandmother's expression changed instantly. She stiffened, her arms trembling as they held Lily close. Her gaze remained locked on Claire, a storm of recognition, fear, and guilt swirling in her tired eyes. Claire blinked, taken aback. "Hello," she said carefully. "I found Lily on the street. She seemed upset, so I wanted to make sure she got home safely." The old woman swallowed hard, her lips pressed tightly together. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and shaky. Thank you for bringing her back." But her tone wasn't just gratitude. It was guarded, almost as if she wanted Claire gone as quickly as possible. Claire tilted her head, confusion tightening her chest. Do we know each other?" she asked, her voice hesitant. There was something about the woman's reaction, too strong, too emotional for a stranger. The grandmother's face paled. She shook her head quickly. "No. Not at all. You must be mistaken." But Claire didn't believe her. There was something in those eyes, an unspoken recognition that couldn't be denied. Still, she decided not to press further, at least not in front of Lily. Instead, she knelt down and touched the girl's shoulder gently. "It was very nice meeting you, Lily. You're such a brave girl." Lily's face fell, her small hand gripping Claire's tightly. "You're leaving?" "But I thought," she trailed off, her innocent eyes filling with sadness. Claire's heart nearly broke in two. She wanted to stay, wanted to scoop Lily into her arms and promise never to let her go. But she also respected the boundary of the grandmother's tense presence. Forcing a smile, she whispered, "I'll see you again, sweetheart." "I promise." Reluctantly, Lily let go, but her gaze followed Claire until she disappeared down the street. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying every word Lily had said, every tear she had shed. "Will you be my mommy?" The question echoed in her ears like a haunting melody. But what unsettled her even more was the grandmother's reaction. That look in her eyes, it wasn't the look of a stranger. It was the look of someone holding back a truth. The more she thought about it, the more certain she became. Something was being hidden. Over the next few days, Claire found herself walking the same route after work, her heart silently hoping to see Lily again. She told herself it was just to check on her, to make sure the little girl was okay. But deep down, she knew it was more than that, and one afternoon, fate granted her wish. Claire spotted Lily skipping on the sidewalk, holding a small worn-out doll. The moment Lily's eyes found her, she gasped and ran forward, her tiny arms outstretched. "Mommy!" Lily shouted with joy. The word sent shockwaves through Claire's body. Her breath caught, her heart pounding. It was the second time the child had called her that. And strangely, it didn't feel wrong. In fact, it felt natural. Claire bent down and hugged her tightly, closing her eyes as tears burned at the corners. "Oh, Lily," she whispered. The grandmother appeared on the porch again, her face pale as ever. She hurried forward, pulling Lily gently back. "That's enough," she said firmly, her voice shaking. "Go inside, Lily." "But Grandma, inside," the woman insisted. Reluctantly, Lily obeyed, her little feet dragging as she disappeared through the doorway, her eyes lingering on Claire until the last second. Now it was just Claire and the old woman standing outside, tension thick in the air. Claire's voice trembled as she spoke. "Why does she keep calling me mommy? Why does she look at me like she knows me?" The grandmother's hands trembled at her sides. Her lips parted, but no words came out at first. Finally, tears filled her eyes, and her voice cracked. "Because she does," she whispered. Claire's body went cold. "What do you mean?" she demanded, her voice barely steady. The old woman looked away, her tears spilling freely now. "I can't, not here. Not yet. But you should know, this is no coincidence. She didn't choose you by accident." Claire's knees weakened. Her heart pounded like thunder in her ears. She wanted to press for answers, to demand the truth. But something in the grandmother's trembling figure told her the revelation would be too heavy to receive all at once. So instead, Claire stood there, frozen in silence, her mind spinning with confusion, fear, and an unshakable sense of destiny. Whatever secret the grandmother was hiding, it was tied to her. To Lily, and though she didn't yet know the full truth, one thing became clear: fate had placed this little girl in her path for a reason, and Claire would not stop until she uncovered it. The days after that strange encounter were restless ones for Claire. Sleep slipped away from her night after night, replaced by the image of Lily's wide brown eyes and the sound of her fragile voice asking the question that still echoed in her heart: "Will you be my mommy?" No matter how hard Claire tried to distract herself, she couldn't shake the feeling that something about Lily was different. Children often spoke with innocence and imagination, but this wasn't just a child's fantasy. There had been weight in Lily's words, a longing so raw it stirred something in Claire she didn't know she had. And then there was the grandmother, the way her face had drained of color at the sight of Claire, the way she had rushed Lily away as if hiding her. There was more to this story, more than either of them was saying. Every evening, Claire found herself walking the same route that led past Lily's small house. At first, she told herself she was just curious, that she only wanted to make sure the little girl was safe. But deep down, she knew the truth: she wanted to see her again. Needed to, and one chilly afternoon, her wish came true. Lily was outside, sitting on the porch steps with her doll in her lap. She looked up and gasped, her face lighting up with joy when she spotted Claire across the street. "Mommy," she cried, jumping up and running toward her with open arms. The word struck Claire like lightning. For a heartbeat, she froze. But then instinct took over, and she bent down, catching the little girl in her arms. As Lily clung to her, Claire's heart thundered. The child's small body fit perfectly against hers, as if they were meant to be together. She breathed in the faint scent of Lily's hair, felt the tiny arms around her neck, and something inside her broke wide open. It felt like home. Tears threatened to spill from her eyes as she held Lily tighter. "Oh, Lily," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Why does it feel like I've known you forever?" The little girl pulled back slightly, her innocent eyes searching Claire's face. "Because you're my mommy," she said simply, as though the truth were that obvious. Claire's chest tightened. She wanted to protest, to remind Lily that she was just a stranger, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep inside, something about what Lily said felt right. Too right. That moment, the sound of footsteps made Claire look up. The grandmother was hurrying toward them, her face pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Lily," she called sharply. "Come back here this instant." But Lily only clung tighter to Claire's neck. "No, Grandma. I don't want to. She's my mommy. I know it." Claire's heart shattered hearing those words. She held Lily closer, her own tears now streaming freely. "Sweetheart," she began, her voice trembling, "I wish I could explain." The grandmother reached them, gently but firmly pulling Lily away. "That's enough," she said, her voice quivering. "Inside, Lily." "But Grandma." "Now," the woman insisted, her eyes full of something between sorrow and panic. Reluctantly, Lily let go, her tiny hand sliding out of Claire's grasp as she trudged back toward the house. Now it was just Claire and the grandmother standing on the sidewalk. The silence between them was thick, heavy with things unsaid. Claire wiped her tears quickly, but her voice broke as she spoke. "Why does she keep calling me mommy? Why does it feel like she already knows me?" The grandmother's hands trembled. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out at first. Finally, she whispered, because she does. Claire's breath hitched. Her pulse roared in her ears. What are you talking about? The old woman's eyes glistened with tears, but she shook her head. Not here. Not yet. You wouldn't understand. Claire stepped closer, her voice sharper now, filled with urgency. Then make me understand. Please. I need to know. But the grandmother only shook her head again, her face full of conflict. It's not time, she whispered. All I can tell you is this: Lily didn't choose you by accident. She felt something because there's something to feel. The words only deepened Claire's confusion. Her heart pounded wildly, and her hands shook at her sides. She wanted answers, needed them, but the old woman's guarded expression told her she wasn't ready to reveal the truth. Finally, the grandmother turned toward the house, her shoulders sagging with weariness. Go home, child, she said softly. Don't make this harder than it already is. Claire stood frozen, watching as the door closed behind her, but the bond had already been made that night. Claire sat in her apartment, staring at the faint glow of the city lights through her window. Her chest ached with a longing she didn't fully understand. She pressed a hand to her heart, whispering Lily's name into the empty room. Why did it feel like a piece of her belonged with that little girl? Why did Lily's touch feel so familiar, so right, as though she had been missing it all her life? She thought back to the moment Lily ran into her arms, calling her mommy. It hadn't felt strange or forced. It had felt natural. Destined. And then there was the grandmother's cryptic words. Because she does. What did that mean? Claire lay awake until dawn, questions swirling in her mind like a storm she couldn't escape. She didn't know the truth yet, but she knew one thing for certain: she couldn't walk away now. Lily wasn't just another child she happened to meet on the street, she was something more, something her heart couldn't let go of. Over the following days, Claire found herself drawn back again and again. Sometimes Lily would be waiting outside, as if she knew Claire would come. The girl's face would brighten instantly, her arms flinging open as she cried, "Mommy!" And every time, Claire would catch her, hold her, and feel the same overwhelming sense of belonging. It didn't matter that logic said otherwise. It didn't matter that the grandmother tried to keep her away. The bond between them was undeniable, unexplainable. It was the bond of a mother and a child, and though Claire didn't yet know the whole truth, her heart already did. Claire could no longer ignore the pull that kept bringing her back to the little house. Every day, she walked the same path. Every day, she hoped to see Lily's tiny figure appear on the porch. And almost every day, she did. The bond between them was growing stronger, undeniable. Lily would run to her with open arms, calling her mommy with such certainty it shattered Claire's heart. Each time, the word pierced her deeper, leaving her both overwhelmed with joy and shaken with confusion, but the grandmother's resistance only grew stronger. She kept her distance at first, watching with tired eyes from the doorway. But one evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky orange, she finally stepped forward. Her face was pale, her lips trembling, as though she had carried a burden too long. "Claire," she said softly, her voice breaking on the name. Claire froze. She hadn't told the woman her name, her heart pounded in her chest. How do you know my name?" The grandmother closed her eyes, tears slipping down her wrinkled cheeks. "Because I've known who you are since the first day you appeared. I've known because I've carried a secret for too many years." Claire's breath quickened. "What secret?" The grandmother's hands trembled as she wrung them together. She looked over her shoulder toward the house, where Lily was inside humming to her doll. Then she turned back, her eyes swimming with sorrow. "You deserve to know," she whispered. "The truth. Even if it breaks us all." Claire's knees felt weak. "Please, tell me," she begged, her voice cracking. The grandmother took a deep breath, as if pulling strength from the evening air. 6 years ago, she began slowly, a young woman gave birth to a baby girl. She was scared. Alone. She felt she wasn't ready to be a mother. The world around her told her she couldn't do it. And in her fear, she made a choice: she left the child behind. Claire's chest tightened. Each word stabbed at her heart. Her breathing grew shallow, but she said nothing, her body frozen. The grandmother continued, her voice trembling. That baby was left on my doorstep. Wrapped in a blanket, with nothing but a tiny bracelet on her wrist. I raised her as my granddaughter. I told her I was her family. But every night, she asked me about her real mother. Every night, she wondered why she had been left behind. Claire's lips quivered. Her hands shook violently at her sides. Something inside her screamed what the truth was, but her mind refused to accept it. The grandmother's tears flowed freely now. Claire, that baby girl was Lily. And you are her mother. The world spun. The street, the fading sunlight, the sound of traffic in the distance, it all blurred as Claire staggered backward, clutching her chest. No, she whispered, shaking her head. No, that can't be. But even as she denied it, her heart knew. The connection she felt, the way Lily's arms fit around her, the way the child had looked into her eyes and known, it all made sense now. Tears poured down Claire's face as she fell to her knees, sobbing. My baby, she choked out. My baby. I left her. The grandmother crouched beside her, placing a trembling hand on her shoulder. You were young, Claire. Lost. You thought you were doing what was best. You thought she would have a better chance without you. I never judged you. But I knew, one day, the truth would return. And it has. Claire's body shook with sobs. Memories she had buried deep came rushing back: the hospital room, the cries of a newborn, the terror of not being ready, the guilt of walking away. She had spent years trying to forget, convincing herself it was the only way. But now, the truth stood before her, living and breathing, calling her mommy. Her daughter, her little girl. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Claire cried, lifting her tear-streaked face toward the grandmother. The old woman shook her head, her own tears falling. Because I didn't know if you'd ever want to face it. And because Lily was happy, at least as happy as I could make her. I didn't want to rip open old wounds unless I was sure you were ready. But Lily, her voice broke. Lily already knows. Her heart recognized you before her mind did. Claire pressed her hands to her face, sobbing uncontrollably. I hurt her. I abandoned her. How could she ever forgive me? The grandmother's voice softened. Children have the purest hearts. She has already forgiven you, Claire. She's been waiting for you her whole life. At that moment, the door creaked open. Lily stepped outside, holding her doll. Her innocent eyes widened when she saw Claire on her knees, crying. She ran forward immediately. Mommy, she whispered, her small hand touching Claire's face. Claire looked up at her daughter, her real daughter, and her heart shattered and healed all at once. She pulled Lily into her arms, clutching her tightly as if she would never let go again. Yes, sweetheart, she sobbed, rocking her gently. Yes. I'm your mommy. I always was. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Lily nestled against her, her small arms wrapping around Claire's neck. Don't cry, Mommy, she whispered. I prayed for you. I knew you'd come. Claire wept harder, kissing the top of Lily's head over and over. I'll never leave you again. Never. You're my whole world, Lily. My baby girl. The grandmother stood silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. She knew this moment had been inevitable, and though it was painful, it was also beautiful. The truth had finally come to light. As the evening sky faded into night, Claire sat on the porch steps with Lily in her lap. She stroked her daughter's hair, whispering promises of love, of forever, and though guilt still weighed heavy in her heart, something else grew stronger: hope. The chance to make things right. For the first time in 6 years, she didn't feel empty anymore. She didn't feel lost. She had found her daughter, and this time, she would never let her go. The night after the truth came out, Claire hardly slept. She sat in a small chair by the bed where Lily was curled up, breathing softly in her sleep, her little doll clutched in her arms. Every rise and fall of her daughter's chest filled Claire's heart with both joy and guilt. She reached out gently, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's forehead. "My baby," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I can't believe I almost lost you forever." Tears rolled down her cheeks silently. For years, she had carried a hole in her heart that no success, no relationship, no distraction could ever fill. And now, the missing piece lay right in front of her, a little girl who had called her mommy before knowing the truth. The next morning when Lily woke up, her first word was soft but certain: "Mommy." The sound pierced Claire's soul like sunlight breaking through a storm. She hugged her tightly, whispering, "Good morning, my love. Mommy's here. Mommy's not going anywhere." The grandmother stood in the doorway, watching. Her eyes were tired but warm. She had worried for years about this very moment, about what would happen if Claire ever returned. But seeing the bond between mother and daughter, she knew she had made the right choice in finally revealing the truth. Still, she sighed heavily. "Claire, we need to talk," she said gently. Claire nodded, carefully pulling the blanket over Lily as she played with her doll on the floor. They stepped outside onto the porch, the morning sun casting a soft glow over the small house. The grandmother's fears. The grandmother clasped her hands together nervously. "I've done my best to raise Lily. She is my heart, my joy. But I am old now. I cannot give her the future she deserves. When I saw how she looked at you, I realized the truth could no longer stay hidden." Claire's throat tightened. "I will never forgive myself for leaving her. But please, let me make it right. Let me be the mother she deserves." The grandmother's eyes welled with tears. "You were young, foolish, afraid. I don't blame you anymore. What matters now is Lily. She loves you already. Don't break her heart again." Claire placed her hand on the old woman's. "I won't. I swear it. I will protect her, love her, and never let her feel alone again." The grandmother studied Claire's face for a long moment, then finally nodded. "Then maybe it's time I let go. She is yours, as she always was." A new beginning. That afternoon, Claire took Lily to the park. For the first time, they walked hand in hand, not as strangers, but as mother and daughter. Lily's laughter filled the air as she ran toward the swings, calling out, "Push me, Mommy." Claire's heart nearly burst hearing that word, "Mommy," spoken with so much joy. She pushed the swing gently, her eyes never leaving her daughter's smiling face. The world around them seemed brighter, as if life itself was celebrating their reunion. Other parents nearby glanced curiously, but Claire didn't care. In that moment, nothing else mattered but the child who had once been lost to her and was now found. Healing old wounds. That evening, back at the grandmother's house, Claire sat with Lily on her lap as they flipped through an old photo album. There were baby pictures of Lily, tiny, wrapped in blankets, her eyes wide with curiosity. Claire gasped softly, pressing her hand to her mouth. That's you, Lily. When you were a baby." Lily giggled. "I was so small." Claire kissed her cheek, tears filling her eyes. "Yes, my love. And I missed so many moments, but I promise I'll never miss another." The grandmother sat across the room, quietly watching the scene. For years, she had filled the role of both mother and grandmother. She had wiped tears, sung lullabies, and carried the weight of a secret that had almost destroyed her. Now, seeing Claire and Lily together, her heart felt lighter. Still, she spoke softly. Claire, Lily doesn't just need love. She needs stability. A safe home. A future. Claire nodded firmly. I've built a life I can share with her. A home filled with warmth, opportunities, and love. But more than anything, she'll have me. Every single day. The grandmother's lips curved into a small smile. Then perhaps God has given us all a second chance. Claire's promise that night, as the moonlight streamed through the window, Claire tucked Lily into bed. The little girl clutched her doll but reached out her other hand, holding tightly to Claire's fingers. Mommy, she whispered sleepily, you won't leave me again, right? Claire's chest ached, her heart heavy with guilt. She kissed her daughter's forehead. Never. Not in a million years. You're my everything, Lily. I'll be here when you wake up, and every day after. The child smiled softly, her eyes fluttering shut. Within moments, she was asleep, her small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Claire sat there long after, holding her tiny hand, silently making promises she intended to keep. She vowed to never let fear or doubt steal her daughter from her again. She vowed to be the mother Lily deserved. Acceptance and hope. Over the following weeks, life slowly began to change. Claire and Lily spent more time together, baking cookies, reading bedtime stories, walking through the park, and even painting messy pictures at the kitchen table. Each moment, no matter how small, felt like a treasure. Every smile, every laugh, every sleepy "I love you, Mommy" was a gift Claire never thought she'd receive. The grandmother, though stepping back, remained a part of their lives. She would sit on the porch, watching them play, her heart both heavy with the thought of letting go and lightened by the joy she witnessed. One evening, as the three of them shared dinner, the grandmother took Claire's hand. "Thank you for coming back," she whispered. "For giving Lily the mother she's always dreamed of. For giving me peace." Claire squeezed her hand gently, tears shining in her eyes. "No, thank you. For keeping her safe when I couldn't. For loving her when I was too weak. You saved her and me." A forever bond. Months later, Claire stood in her own home, decorating Lily's new bedroom. The walls were painted in bright colors, with little stars and butterflies. A new bed stood by the window, covered in soft blankets. On the wall, Claire placed a framed picture of the three of them, Lily, her grandmother, and herself, smiling together. When Lily walked in, her eyes sparkled. "It's so pretty, Mommy," she squealed, jumping into her new bed. Claire sat beside her, hugging her tightly. "This is your room now, sweetheart. A place that's always yours. A home. And Mommy will always be right here." Lily looked up at her, her eyes shining with pure love. "I prayed for you every night," she whispered. "I knew you'd come." Claire's tears spilled over, but this time, they weren't just tears of guilt. They were tears of gratitude, of healing, of love. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered back, "And I'll never leave again. Not ever. Because you're my miracle, Lily. My reason. My forever." From that day forward, they were no longer broken pieces searching for each other. They were a family reunited, whole, and stronger than ever, and all of it had begun with one innocent question from a little girl: "Will you be my mommy?"